Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1983 film Risky Business. Now, I personally would not consider this to be one of my personal favorites, but I did really enjoy this film. And before I get around to sharing my thoughts on Risky Business, I would like to give a special shout out to Andrew for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. A link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Risky Business is one of those films that, I mean, it definitely made a significant impact on 80s popular culture. When it came out, it was a big hit financially and with critics. It single-handedly saved Ray-Ban because the Wayfarer sunglasses just exploded in popularity after this film's release. And when you see the film, you can definitely see why. Tom Cruise wearing those sunglasses looks like the coolest man alive in this. So I could totally see why people were like, man, I want to be like Tom Cruise. I got to go get myself a pair of those Ray-Bans. Um, and the reason why Tom looks so cool, and the reason why these Ray-Bans, and the reason why the film was so popular in large part was not just due to the story and due to the script or even the performances by the cast, but it's because of its surreal, slick, and just absolutely cool direction from first-time filmmaker Paul Brickman, who also wrote the film. For a first-time filmmaker, the results here are remarkable. They genuinely are. I thought he did an amazing job with this when it comes to the way that he framed his shots, even stuff like the various sex scenes between Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay. The way that those are shot is very unique and interesting and very art house. And the way the film is shot visually is very much akin to like a European art house film, and that's by design. I believe that's what Paul Brickman was trying to do. He was trying to direct a teen sex comedy in a way that would make it stand out from the cheaper, quick, down and dirty kind of films that were coming out around the same time. So we wanted to take more of an auteur approach to it, and I think as a result, like it really made Risky Business stand out amongst its peers. And to this day, it really makes it into something that's held up very well and hasn't aged as poorly as some of these other teen sex comedies from around the same time period. And I just love the way that Brickman directed this. Uh, the usage of zooms in particular was incredible. It was just a really well designed usage of zooms. Like from the very beginning, when you see the camera zoom in on Tom's sunglasses, and you see his eye in the sunglasses, and then the camera pans out and then shows Tom uh, for the first time. That was such a great reveal for his character, and it was such a striking way to start things off. Even from the opening, which shows the slow mo, surreal, dreamlike shots of the city and the train and the subway, like that was also something that was just really different and just created a very unique dynamic for the film visually. And I really like the way that he utilized pans as well. It's not just the zooms, the pans were also really good, and unique usages of POV shots. There's a sequence with Tom Cruise's character, Joel, and he's talking to his parents when they're on their way to a business trip or some kind of vacation that they're going to be getting on a plane for. And so you see this whole sequence of events firmly from the perspective of Joel. It's a POV of Joel talking to his parents, and that's definitely something that's different and really interesting when it comes to the film's direction. And there's quite a few other moments like that throughout the film visually. And I just really felt that Paul just added so much to this film because of the way that he decided to direct it in a more serious art house kind of fashion, which is why it has this very surreal, dreamlike quality to it. And I think that was also done to further emphasize one of the main points of the film, which is to be a subversion of the American dream, so specifically the American teenage dream. So it makes a lot of sense that the film, in a multitude of different moments, looks like a dream. It even opens up with a dream sequence, and there are multiple dream sequences throughout the movie. And it also leads to something like Tangerine Dream's score just fitting so much better with the overall film because of the fact that the direction is also very dreamlike. So yeah, I can't sing enough praises for Brickman's direction in this. It's a damn shame that he just didn't really take advantage of the opportunities that he got after this. He was offered a multitude of different other film projects like Rain Man, Forrest Gump, and so on after Risky Business, but he never took any of them. He's since regretted that, but he's explained the reason why as him not being really used to being in the spotlight, him being more of a extroverted, I mean, introverted kind of guy, instead of an extroverted personality. So he just wanted to kind of just keep things to himself and not really be a part of the Hollywood machine, so to speak. But he still missed out on a massive opportunity, if you ask me. And we missed out on seeing him evolve further as a director because he only directed one other movie after this, and it bombed and didn't do that well. And then he never directed a film again, which is a shame. When you see his direction in this from a first time filmmaker, it's quite impressive. And it leaves you wanting to see more from this guy, and you never got it. You never got to see that at all, which it really is a shame. I think he should have taken more risks with his career, to be honest, after Risky Business. He does feel the same way after all these years because he's one of his biggest regrets is that he did not take advantage of the opportunities that he was given in the industry. Um, because he proved that he was a capable dual threat as well. Like he could write and direct. So there's multiple different directions he could have taken his career. He could have, okay, he doesn't want to be in the spotlight, doesn't want to be the guy who's directing a lot of stuff. Well, then he could have gotten more jobs writing, but it just never really panned out. And speaking of writing, I thought he did a wonderful job writing this screenplay. This is a film that at its core is another teen sex comedy or another teen coming of age film. But it's so much more than that because of the way that Brickman approaches this particular plot. Yes, it's about a preppy teen named Joel who decides to run a brothel in his parents' house while his parents are gone. Yes, that is a pretty significant plot line in Risky Business. He does this because he needs to raise some money, so he can pay for his parents' Porsche to get fixed because he wound up getting it dropped into the lake. So he's definitely got some other motivation other than he's a horny teenager to do the brothel. Uh, Whether or not that was something that was an accident or something that was done on purpose by the prostitute that he was dating is kind of up in the air, and that's one aspect of the script that I really like is its ambiguity. Like, there's a lot of aspects of this that make you question things and leave you scratching your head, and it's some mystery. Like, what really were the real motivations of Lana? Did Lana really fall for Joel in any way? Did she actually really like him? Or was she just using him the entire time? Or is it a bit of both? And that's another aspect of the script that just makes it more layered and makes it a lot more interesting than just your typical teen comedy, dealing with sex and TNA and so on and so forth. You definitely do get some typical stuff that you expect from those kind of films in terms of some dialogue or some back and forths between Joel and his friends, like Miles and Barry. I really liked how the script handled the dynamic between Joel and Miles. By the way, there's some really fun moments between the two, and how Miles is the guy who's trying to get Joel to break out of his shell some more, and be more outgoing and take more risks. What the fuck? Sometimes you just got to say what the fuck. And there's just a lot of moments with the script that really do make you buy that these two are close friends. Like, right down to like the kind of stuff that friends do when they, are in a kind of crazy situation and they insult one another, but in a very charming and still fun way. Like, it's not super mean spirited. It's very tongue in cheek. Like when Joel picks up Lana and gets into a chase with Lana's pimp in his parents' Porsche, and they're driving all over the city at night, and they eventually get away from the pimp. But as soon as they come to a halt, Miles, who's like been like sick to his stomach throughout the whole thing, he's just fed up with his friend Joel, and Joel says something along the lines of like Porsche, the best there is, stuff, something like that, and then Miles is like, "Fuck you," like I love that. Like it's just such a great moment between those two characters, and there's quite a few moments like that with those two. Um, and I really like the whole way that Joel just decides to say what the fuck. It's like, oh, what the fuck. I'll call this a call girl. I'll call her, see what happens. Then she gives him the night of his life. But she's manipulative. She can't be trusted. She steals a priceless heirloom from his parents' house. It's like this crystal egg. So now he's got to get that back, but he is having problems with that because now he has to deal with the fact that Lana is on the run from her pimp, and she has to find a way to get back to her apartment to get the egg. So he has to basically wind up letting her stay in his house. And this causes a lot of other sort of issues that arise, and it causes problems with him and his school life, which is honestly predicted in the beginning of the movie with this very surreal, weird dream sequence with complete with narration from Joel, where he's talking about this dream that he had about seeing this woman in a bathroom who's like naked in the shower, and he tries to go into the shower to be with her but gets lost in the steam, and then he winds up being transported into the classroom of his high school, and he's now there with like 2 minutes left before the end of like a big test, and then actually winds up tying into some elements of the story later on, where because of the stuff that's going on with Lana and her friends, he winds up missing a school because he has to take the Porsche to the shop, after it got dunked in the lake. And that leads to him getting written up, and he could not afford another write up because it would cause him to fail, and significantly hampen. I mean, hampen isn't the right word. I don't even think that is that a word. But it would significantly harm his chances of getting into whatever school he wants, because that tardy uh, would wind up leading to him failing one of his classes, or wind up getting a lesser grade point average. And so he's desperately trying to get the nurse to give him an exception, but she's not having it. And in his desperation, he actually grabs her by the collar, and that definitely didn't end well for Joel. He winds up getting suspended, so of course that hurts his record even more. So now he's just screwed. And so now he's desperate, and he's got to raise money, and he's got to do all this other stuff. He got to fix the porch. So that's when he decides, all right, let's have the brothel at my parents' house. And what happens next is honestly, kind of tame when it comes to a movie about a brothel, like Night Shift, which came out a little bit earlier than this, or maybe around the same time. That's raunchier, honestly, than Risky Business, despite it having another brothel in it. Um, because like the whole brothel scene, like there's really not a lot of nudity. There's not really a lot of sex. It's implied, but you don't really see much. But during the night of debauchery and sex at his parents' house, this guy from Princeton shows up, and he's there for an interview with Joel to see whether or not he can go to Princeton. And of course, Joel's like, "Oh my God, why now?" And he does the interview, and he thinks it doesn't go well, but because of the fact that he had this party with all these hot women, and the Princeton guy got to get a piece of that action, he actually winds up getting into Princeton by the end of the movie. So there's a lot of things about this that don't necessarily turn out the way you might expect. And I really like that about the script. Like, oh, the Princeton guy shows up. Oh, you're not going to make it to Princeton. Oh, wait, no, you are. Or stuff like with Lana. Oh, you're thinking, okay, he's going to fall for her. She's going to fall for him. It's going to be like a happily ever after sort of thing. Young man falls in love with a hooker who has a heart of gold. No, not really. Like, they are still acquaintances and friends by the end of the film, but it's not like they're a couple. It's not like they're gonna remain boyfriend and girlfriend. Joel actually is starting to mistrust her, and doesn't he even says a line like, "Hey, you think I'm gonna trust you with a check?" uh, and I actually like moments like when Guido, who is Lana's pimp, he winds up stealing all the furniture out of Joel's parents' house in retaliation for Joel taking Guido's girls and raising all of his money with this brothel. And he gets Joel to like pay him to get all of this stuff back, to put it back into the house. And it leads to things just getting more and more hectic because his parents are literally almost on their way home. So he's like, "Oh God, just here's the money. Give me the stuff so I can get it back in the house." And it's not what you would expect, because after everything that he does with that night where he's, soliciting people and getting people to come to the brothel, and, come to the party and pay for, services, he doesn't get a dime from that, because he has to pay the pimp back to get the uh, furniture and the clothes and all the other decorations and stuff and everything that was in the house, including the rugs. Like, he's gotta get all that back, and he winds up spending all of his money, which is done on purpose because this film has a pretty significant amount of subtext and social commentary. So the message of Risky Business is about money and how you can choose to have money in life or you can choose to have love. But you can't necessarily have both at the same time because one is going to ultimately significantly affect the other, and it also is is a commentary about what the real American dream is, and also specifically what the real American teenage dream is from a young male perspective, which it is. It's about, okay, finding a good job, and not necessarily a job that you really want to do or you're that passionate about. It's a job that pays well, getting to a good college, so you can get your foot in the door and have a better opportunity to get that big high paying job. But also, uh, you want the girls and all of that other stuff that's supposed to come with it, but there's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made, and in a lot of ways you can't have both. And so that's what happened by the end of Risky Business is, yeah, Joel did all this stuff and set up the brothel, and it was a success, and he made all this money, but ultimately he had to give it back to the pimp because the pimp screwed him over and stole all of his parents' stuff. So in order for his parents not to notice that anything was up, he has to give the pimp the money. He already had to pay the body shop to fix his dad's Porsche, so he already had to do that, and that already cost him money. He and even after all of this, he still doesn't get away with it because the his mother's priceless glass sculpture, egg, got scratched anyway. Even after he went out of his way to catch it, after uh, Joe Pantoliano's character Guido threw it in the air and he dove to catch it before it hit the ground, it still got scratched. And despite all of this, he's still going to Princeton. Like, he thought, oh, University of Illinois, here I come. But no, he still wound up going to Princeton because of this whole crazy scenario and this crazy night with this call girl and her friends and a brothel slash party in his parents' house. And of course, there's a lot of themes about independence. There's a lot of themes about growing up, specifically, juxtaposing images of Joel as a child with him as a man when it comes to him having sex with Lana in different places throughout the house, which is another instance of why the script is so good. I really thought that was very interesting and striking to have that contrast. Oh, there's baby pictures and there's images of Joel when he was a kid, and then he's like banging this just smoking hot, drop dead gorgeous call girl in different places throughout the house that he grew up in. And yeah, you do have the scene where he's dancing in his underwear to the Bob Seger song, but tonally and honestly, story wise, that's such a small part of Risky Business because a lot of it is really about subverting things, subverting your expectations initially, subverting the American dream, and it's all handled so well when it comes to how it handles the characters, their motivations, their actions, and even how things ultimately conclude in the end. I prefer the theatrical ending because I think it ends it on a more satisfying, little lighter note. And I like the fact that Joel actually is proven to have learned something from what he did and what he went through by, not necessarily trusting Lana so much. But the original ending was a lot more ambiguous and bleak. The original ending was more clear when it comes to Lana being in on it, when it comes to being so manipulative and pulling one over on Joel and working with Guido to get all that money back, uh, because of the fact that it was just all one long con with her and Guido and her friends in the call girl prostitute industry, so to speak. And she was just using him and all these other teenage boys and all these other horny guys in order to, get one step further ahead, in order, to get all this money and all this other stuff. Um, you could maybe even look at the scene where she's like, I want to make love on a train, as another instance of her just getting what she wants. It's not necessarily one of those things where it doesn't even seem like Joel really wants to do it, but he's like, "Hey, this girl is hot. I'm gonna do it. And, this is what she wants to do. Then this is what I'm gonna do." And it gets to the point where he even has to take a homeless guy off the train so he can, finally get into her pants again while the train is going. Um, but that's also an example of just how fast things go, and how fast life can go by, especially when you're at this point in time in your life, that it can be like you're on a train and you don't necessarily know what the exact destination is, but you want to experience the thrill of being on that train. And I think there's a lot of that in this script as well. So yeah, I do. I genuinely feel that it's not a dumb script. I think it's a very smart and clever script because of its satirical elements, subverting expectations. The subversion is in a lot of ways tied into the satirical elements of the script, where it's satirizing the typical standard teen sex comedy. So, yeah, to me, it is definitely not only one of the better teen sex comedies of the 80s, but you could make an argument that it is the best one because it's the one that really has the longest and most lasting legacy. Because it's not just a film that is just there for TNA. There's some stuff to think about when it comes to the film's story and the film's script. And it's also still funny. So it's not like laugh out loud hilarious all the time, but there's still a fair amount of laughs, and it's very sexy, and but it's also very subversive. And the cast is really great. I mean, Tom Cruise as Joel Goodson. This is definitely one of his best performances, especially early on in his career. Like, he just oozes charm and charisma in this. He's just the epitome of cool. Like, he's such a cool guy in this. He's the kind of guy where you're like, man, I wish I could be Tom Cruise in this. And he played a believable everyman too. Like, he was kind of a dweeb. He was kind of a dweeby character. If you really think about it, it's not really the typical sort of character that Tom Cruise would go on to play later on in his career. Like, there's a lot of warts to this guy. Like, he is kind of a dweeb. He's kind of a mama's boy at points. Like, he's kind of, a guy who just winds up, being under his parents' thumb, but then ultimately breaks away from it. But when you see him interact with his parents early on, it definitely does seem like he's not the rebellious type by any means. He's definitely seems like he's a guy who is kind of leery and afraid of letting loose, which is why you have that moment with him and his friend Miles, where Miles is like, sometimes you just got to say, "What the fuck, Joel," and just do some shit. Just do something. Parents are gone. You know, do something crazy. You know, you only live once. And Tom, I just felt like he definitely was believable when it comes to playing the preppy type, but he still had that everyman mentality, and he still was a guy that, despite the fact that he's got it good, uh, you still sympathize with him, especially when it comes to everything completely crumbling, when it comes to what he felt like was his path to a bright future because of everything that he's going through in this just crazy couple weeks, and meeting Lana, and then having to deal with Lana's pimp, and then getting in a car chase with the pimp, and then having to deal with the pimp, just basically always on his ass, and then Lana manipulating him on top of it, and then the Porsche getting put into the lake, and then him having to deal with that, and then the fallout of that is he gets suspended, and then everything is just gone. Everything that he worked for, everything that he spent all of his life building up to, is just gone in an instant. Like, you really sympathized with Tom, and I felt Tom did a good job showcasing those emotions when he's riding away on his bike and he's just frustrated and he's just angry at the world. And he also did a great job playing, the Joel who's now confident, wearing the sunglasses and recruiting people to come over to his house, which is now a brothel, and have some fun. So he did a good job playing both sides of this character. Rebecca De Mornay was just absolutely gorgeous, as always, as Lana. I love her. She's one of my favorite actresses. She's a way more capable and way more nuanced actress than people want to give her credit for. She's not just a sex symbol kind of actress. She's not just there for sex appeal. She showed that in Backdraft, and she's showed that in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and more. And this is one of her first roles as well, one of her first bigger breakout roles, and she does a great job with it, playing a character that's a little more complex than you might initially think, for a character that is this call girl prostitute who goes in and gives this young teenage boy the night of his life, and then decides to pretty much string him along throughout the rest of the story. So she has to believably portray these elements of her performance that make Joel fall for her and trust her, but then also do these things where she's being shady and not as trustworthy, but in a way that makes it so she's not entirely awful. And that's difficult to really ride that fine line between manipulative and nasty and sweet. And she does that very well. And the rest of the cast is good too. I mean, Curtis Armstrong, who I believe this was his film debut, he made a great initial impact as Miles. He had some really good chemistry with Tom Cruise. I know he doesn't necessarily think very well of Tom because of some statements that Tom made about gay people apparently on the set of this movie. I don't know if that's really true, but knowing how Tom is when it comes to a lot of the Scientology stuff, it doesn't sound like too much of a stretch. And that's unfortunate if that is the case. But regardless, that didn't really lead to any issues between the scenes featuring Tom and Curtis. You bought that the two of them were friends and they had that really good friendly chemistry with one another. Same thing for Bronson Pinchot as Barry. And there's a lot of other actors in this that you might recognize. Raphael Sabarge, he's been in a bunch of stuff like The Hidden Two, Carnosaur. He played a character named Glenn in this. You had Megan Mullally as a call girl. Yeah, Megan Mullally from Will and Grace, who played Karen. She played one of the call girls in this. Um, You also have Joe Pantoliano, who plays Guido, the pimp. He was a lot of fun in this. It was a you could tell that he was also having a blast playing this pimp character, and it just made it so much more enjoyable. This is one of his earlier roles as well. And yeah, Nicholas Pryor plays Mr. Goodson. Janet Carroll plays Mrs. Goodson. They were fine. Richard Masur, he played Bill Rutherford, the guy from Princeton who did the interview. I swear, I also heard Phil Hartman. I think he's uncredited or something, but he's like the voice of some businessman who's talking to Lana at some point in the movie. I swear to God, it's Phil Hartman. Which I thought, oh, cool. There's Phil Hartman as well. Um, I know that there were some other people that were considered to be a part of the cast, like Michelle Pfeiffer as Lana, but she turned it down because she thought it was too similar to the Scarface role, or she took Scarface instead. Um, you had people like Kevin Bacon, John Cusack, Tom Hanks that were considered for Joel. But ultimately it went to Tom Cruise, and I think that was definitely the better choice. I can't really see Tom Hanks as Joel Goodson in Risky Business. Kevin Bacon, I could see it. John Cusack, maybe. Sean Penn, not really. Gary Sinise, absolutely not. But I could see some of these other people in in that role, maybe. But honestly, it was just Tom's role. It was the role that he was destined to get, so he would be catapulted into the stratosphere when it comes to his stardom. The film also features some great cinematography by Bruce Surtees and Ronaldo Villalobos. I really like the editing in it by Richard Chew, and I think the score by Tangerine Dream is just tremendous. It's so strange and ethereal and surreal and dreamlike and so unquestionably unique that it just makes the film so much better. And it's just great to listen to on its own, but it just gives the film such a different sort of vibe that it definitely would not have otherwise. And of course, you also have other songs in the soundtrack, like "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins, songs by Journey, Jeff Beck, "Old Time Rock and Roll" by Bob Seger. Prince has a track in it. Um, there's like a song by Talking Heads. There's "Every Breath You Take" by The Police. "Hungry Heart" by Bruce Springsteen. Um, so it's got a great soundtrack as well when it comes to songs that they threw in there. And it's a well-paced movie for the most part too. Yeah, I thought it was a good one. Definitely a good film. Wouldn't mind picking up the Criterion release sometime in the future if it's on sale. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Risky Business, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya. Still like that old time rock and roll, the kind of music just soothes the soul. I reminisce about the days of old with that old time rock and roll, with that old time rock and roll.